Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 23rd of June 2021, and these are the stories that we will be talking about during the course of the show. We will begin, first of all, with the FATF meeting that is going on virtually as we speak in Paris. And the decision is going to come out on Friday as to whether Pakistan is going to remain in the grey list or will be moved to the white list. Now, the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says that Pakistan has fulfilled all the 27 conditions of the FATF. Therefore, there is no justification for the watchdog to keep the country in its grey list. Now, we know that Pakistan has also complied with 31 out of the 40 major conditions that had been put by the watchdog. We will be talking about what importance does this plenary meeting have as far as Pakistan's future with the FATF is concerned, and how the Afghan situation is also or could change this FATF rating for Pakistan. This is our leading segment. Then we will be talking, ladies and gentlemen, about the family members of 11 Pakistani Hindus who were killed under mysterious circumstances in India, and they held a protest against India in front of the Indian High Commission this morning at 11. Now, 37-year-old Keval Ram is the only surviving member of this family in India that had migrated to India a couple of years back. All the other members of the family have been killed under mysterious circumstances, and no justification to date has been given by the Indians as to how and under which circumstances this family died. We'll be talking about that in our second segment. Our third segment, ladies and gentlemen, is about a US Senator Lindsey Graham, who says that Joe Biden's reluctance in engaging Pakistan is stunning as far as the different processes that concern the region are concerned. Of course, this concerns the Afghan peace process. To date, Joe Biden has to have a conversation with the Pakistani Premier Imran Khan. And of course, our Premier was also asked about this in a television interview very recently. And then finally, we'll be talking about Pakistan and Facebook that have partnered to fight COVID-19 as the world's prominent social media platform has provided marketing, partner support and ad credits for campaigns against the deadly virus, and has helped the government increase its engagement rates with the public on these posts. We'll begin with the first segment that concerns the FATF and Pakistan's grey list, whether it will be coming out this Friday when the decision is taken out by this plenary body. More in the following report.
Terror financing watchdog Financial Action Task Force will be deciding Pakistan's fate at the plenary session that began on Monday. Whether Pakistan stays on the grey list is likely to be decided this week. The decision of the FATF plenary session will be known on June 25th, while Pakistan was put on the grey list by the Paris-based FATF in June 2018. According to Asia Pacific Group Review report, Pakistan is now fully compliant with the 7 recommendations and largely compliant with 24 others. The country is partially compliant with 7 recommendations and non-compliant with 2 of a total 40 recommendations. Earlier in May, reports emerged that amid Islamabad's scramble to exit from FATF's grey list, the country is set to introduce new rules relating to anti-money laundering cases and change the prosecution process to meet its remaining tough conditions. These measures would ensure a transparent, robust and efficient approach to investigating money laundering and terror financing, and to the seizure, confiscation and management of criminal assets by supporting relevant agencies in cooperatively achieving this goal. Based on these measures, the FATF would conclude if Pakistan has complied with 3 outstanding benchmarks out of 27 that blocked its exit from the so-called grey list in February this year. The Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, stated that Pakistan had fulfilled all the 27 conditions of the Financial Action Task Force. Therefore, there was no justification for the global financial watchdog to keep the country in its grey list. In terms of performance, Pakistan is very optimistic that it will get good news from the FATF, despite contemplating irreversible and sustainable measures in short span of time. Pakistan is poised to face resistance from India and France. In the best global interest, FATF should be retained as technical body, as the weaponization of FATF for political ends will tarnish the credibility of anti-money laundering watchdog.
Now, despite Pakistan being compliant on 31 of the 40 recommendations of the FATF, we still have to know and ascertain whether Pakistan is going to come out of the grey list or not on Friday when the decision is announced after the plenary meeting, that is a virtual meeting this time, of the FATF members. To talk about this situation And what are the roles, what are the elements that have put Pakistan in the grey list and not other countries in the neighborhood? We've been joined by Dr. Usman Chohan. He's a political economist. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us. Dr. Saab, my first question to you. I mean, I really would like to understand that Pakistan is put on the grey list, not the first time that it has been put on the grey list. Nobody talks about India. Why?
I think you're making an absolutely relevant point. If you look at the size of the black economy in India, it is so many multiples larger, and because of COVID and the mishandling that they have done there, the black economy has flourished even more because of desperation. So if, as our foreign minister said, there's no basis to put Pakistan on the grey list, there is every basis to put India on the grey list. And I think that it has a lot to do with the underlying dynamics of how the affiliate, APG, the FATF's affiliate APG, is run, and the voice that India has there, which doesn't make sense anymore, because I would like this to be a technical subject that's not impeded by any political brinksmanship or games.
But isn't it impeded by political brinkmanship, as you very rightly pointed out, which includes our relationship with some of the European members that are very prominent in the FATF and have voiced their opinion against Pakistan coming out of the grey list, and of course our neighbor India as well, that is on the FATF members list. Surprise, surprise. So do you feel which should be the maneuver by Pakistan in order to move forward, in order to A, solidify our relationship with the European partners that do not want Pakistan to come out of the grey list, and B, tackle the Indian issue?
I believe that the first thing we have to do is insist on a neutral assessment. This is done by peer groups, but our peers may have political misalignment with our interests. And so we should try to maintain good relations with all international capitals and point out that money laundering should not be the forum for bullying a country, for punishing a country, for economically sanctioning a country. So again, the insistence should be that we are taking strong measures, enforcement, oversight actions that reflect a seriousness about money laundering, terrorist financing, and making our economic system dynamic, open, and transparent. That's the argument, I think, above all, that these countries shouldn't be mixing any other ingredients into a technical issue.
Is FATF a pressure tactic for Pakistan?
Yes, I believe it is very much a pressure tactic, because it comes into the realm of hybrid warfare, where you have economic sanctions as an indirect tool to coerce other countries. Economies suffer deeply if they're put into excessive monitoring regimes. For us, the estimate that I've heard that I think is very pertinent and accurate is about $10 billion annually of loss for a country with an economy our size. That means that it's harder for countries to do business with us, corporations to come and invest, and our people to move funds, legitimate funds, around. And so I think that it's important for our economy to thrive in a whitelist circumstance.
When Pakistan complies with 31 of the 40 recommendations of the FATF, why is the FATF not brimming with positivity as far as Pakistan is concerned?
One reason it doesn't brim with positivity is because its ethos and its attitude is always to find errors in societies. The question is, why is it finding so many errors in our society as opposed to others? It really should find far more errors in neighboring countries, India and Afghanistan. They have terrible money laundering regimes, if they have any at all. And so I think that finding errors is a useful aspect when you're doing oversight, but you're certainly finding a lot more errors in the wrong country. That's my argument.
All right, you spoke about Afghanistan. Now we know that the situation in Afghanistan is a bit precarious right now. We do not know what's going to happen in the coming weeks. If, God forbid, the situation becomes worse, will the onus of responsibility and the FATF again point to Pakistan?
Yes, I think you're drawing an excellent connection here between the situation that may erupt in Afghanistan and what it means for terrorist financing and money laundering. One of the things that might happen along with a refugee influx is the influx of black money. And it's very hard to monitor random movements of populations, so the onus is on us to make sure that black money doesn't come in large infusions into our society as part of a stronger regime. But of course the task is harder, because our work so far has been done with the assumption that we're looking at our domestic economy's movements largely. But when you have influxes coming cross-border in an erratic manner, then you will have erratic reasons for the FATF to strike at you that you weren't doing a good job.
All right, Dr. Saab, when we look at the previous plenary sessions of the FATF and what were the issues that were addressed by Pakistan subsequently, from in January 29, where one issue was largely addressed and 25 were incomplete, to currently in February 2021, when 24 were largely addressed, 3 were partially addressed, and there is no incomplete or no no question mark on the others. Despite the fact that Pakistan, I mean, if it would be for a layman or a neutral person, Pakistan would certainly be out of the grey list. But we still are apprehensive on what would happen on Friday. Let's look at the different scenarios. If Pakistan does not, for example, come out of the grey list, what then? What should Pakistan do?
Pakistan should continue to work on its money laundering and terrorist financing protocols, regardless of what the FATF says, because this is in our long-term interest. The FATF is a politicized body and it's pressuring us, but we have a duty to ourselves to make sure our economy is stable and dynamic and transparent. That's the first point. The second point is that the grey listing is a very easy pressure tactic. It does impede our economic dynamism and growth, and so we have to continue to find measures to keep the economy going despite the pandemic, despite international pressure, despite the risks of our neighborhood. On our eastern front, the country is falling, India is falling apart in terms of its deaths and cases, and it's lying openly to its public, and its economy is in the doldrums. That is a big risk. Afghanistan could erupt with violence anytime at a large scale, and that would be a risk. So we have to maintain a sobriety, working on our situation, and at the same time insisting to the world capitals that we're serious about this. Now we need assistance because we don't want history to repeat itself.
When you talk of assistance, what kind of assistance are you looking at?
Well, one reason is, one factor would be that they provide further technical assistance on how to improve our money laundering regimes. Another is to ease up and put us in the whitelist based on the merits of what we've done. The other thing is preparing for refugee influxes if, God forbid, things get worse. That has a monetary and economic impact as well. And the third is the fourth point I would say is that our relationship with the IMF comes into this, where the stringent austerity protocols that they've tried to put in should be eased in rather than being forced lump sum as part of an external funding facility in EFF.
All right, now let's look at the positive picture. What if Pakistan comes out of the grey list and comes in the white list? What should Pakistan then do as measures in order to continue to remain in that white list?
I think this
because of course there's going to be the pressure from Afghanistan, there's the pressure from India as well.
You're absolutely right. I think this is a very important point. If you come out of the white list, it's not a game over and we've passed. These oversight mechanisms in a society help to make sure that things remain stable and positive on an ongoing basis. And that means that on an ongoing basis, we have to make sure that banned outfits or prescribed outfits don't find room or space to start doing things that they have done in the past. So that means that it's an ongoing effort, and what I would particularly encourage, which has been very good so far, is that our institutions continue to work together on this. You've seen many stakeholders come in to help Pakistan get out of the white list. So if it does, they all deserve credit, but they must continue to work together to make sure things are good.
All right. Dr. Chohan, is the IMF somehow correlated indirectly or directly with Pakistan being in the grey list or white list? Will that change Pakistan's relationship with the IMF if Pakistan stays in the grey list or comes in the white list?
Oh, you raise an excellent point. The IMF has used the FATF's verdicts on Pakistan as a means of seeing whether it's complying with an overall perspective on reforming its economy. That means that the IMF confers extra legitimacy on the FATF because the FATF is a voluntary body. But when the IMF starts to put it at front and center, then it becomes far more important. And so if we get out of the white list, then that gives us a negotiating leverage with the IMF that, look, we understand that reforms have to take place, but they have to be at a reasonable time scale given the pandemic, given our population, and given the structure of our society. So it gives us a leverage to bring some sense of reasonability to the negotiation.
All right. Now, when it comes to Pakistan's GDP growth, and of course we've witnessed a slightly higher growth than what was expected by the State Bank and of course the world bodies as well. Despite Pakistan coming or not coming out of the grey list, do you feel we are growing at a steady pace as far as our economy is concerned? And if not, what needs to be done?
I believe that we're doing a good job, but the GDP that we just saw was reflective of exceptional circumstances earlier. So we had an unusual decline earlier, and now we have an unusual rise. What I would like to see is a steady state increase that is in excess of our population growth. Because if your economy grows at 3%, but your population grows at 3%, your net gain per capita is zero. And so we have to keep in mind that we are a growing, dynamic people. We need to give them opportunities at all levels to maximize capital and labor to build our society.
Dr. Chohan, if we go a little bit in the past, when we read what our foreign minister had to say as far as the previous government is concerned, and when he says that no previous government took steps to curb money laundering or terror financing, why was that so? I mean, didn't the previous governments understand the importance of handling issues as delicate as these two?
This is a very important question. In one sense, previous governments did take it seriously because they did put laws on the books, and these laws go as far back as the 1990s, the late 90s, things were done. The question is enforcement, and I think that the pressure in our society is so much greater now that the enforcement of it and technical amendments to those laws taking place reflect greater seriousness now. But I wouldn't go so far as to say that previous governments didn't take it seriously. But paying lip service to such an important issue is not the way to proceed. Now we're taking it in terms of enforcement and boots on the ground, getting things done, and that's different.
At the societal level, what needs to be done in order to further strengthen our economy and to prevent any such measures such as terror financing and money laundering to take place?
Now you're asking the real question, because ultimately it's on us as a society working together that money laundering, terrorist financing, and other illicit activities don't take place. Our society is very comfortable with informal systems of working, and I think informal systems are not appropriate for the 21st century. This is a data-driven world, and we have to make sure that things are done in a proper way with oversight so that we maximize the value. Informal economies don't ever go very far, and so we have to bring a formal, structured system that is devoid of too much corruption and too much hanky-panky and mismanagement so that things are put in the light for the public's value.
When you talk of formal structure, last question to you, Dr. Saab, what are the three main things that come to mind?
In terms of a formal structure, I think first of all is banking. So first of all, people need to have bank accounts. We're an unbanked society largely.
True.
The other thing is digital payments, so having things that are monitored through phones. Yes, it's adopting quickly if you look at the numbers, but we're starting from a small base, and I would like everybody to be in digital payments largely. And the third is for the banking system to recognize its responsibility to the people. Our banks are very privileged in terms of the borrowing that the government gives them at a very low risk. There's no risk from government lending to the government, and yet they pay very little to depositors, the people. So I think that spread that banks make is unfair to the people, and so if you have high interest rates, it must reflect the risk to society, otherwise you give a return to society as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Usman Chohan, political economist, talking to us about Pakistan coming or not coming out of the grey list. We'll see, of course, in a couple of days. We just have till Friday, the day after tomorrow, to know and to ascertain what happens, what does not. We know there is opposition within the FATF membership, and we need to tackle this. And of course, we have a government that is all ready to tackle Pakistan's economic situation and stability, come what may. So let's hope for the best. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab.
Thank you.
Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns family members of 11 Pakistani Hindus who were killed under or murdered or found dead under mysterious circumstances in India. And some of the family members that are still living held a protest in front of the Indian High Commission in Islamabad today at 11 in the morning. What has been happening as far as details? Because a lot of mystery shrouds details concerning these killings or these people found dead. Only one surviving member remains, that is 37-year-old Keval Ram in India. And of course, the daughter of one of the members has openly blamed also the Indian Intelligence Service to be behind it. Dr. Asma Shakir Khuwaja Sahiba, a foreign affairs expert, joins us online. Dr. Sahiba, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Sahiba, the first question that comes to my mind, of course, is why is there no proper justification of what happened to these 11 members in India?
Omar, you are not audible. Can you speak a bit louder?
All right. Dr. Asma Shakir Khuwaja Sahiba, can you hear me now properly?
Now you are audible. Thank
All
you.
right.
Can you
We can see that with Dr. Asma Shakir Khuwaja Sahiba, also Hamid Khan Al-Mushtaki Saab, who's an analyst, joins us online. But first, we'll begin our conversation with Dr. Asma Shakir Khuwaja Sahiba. Ma'am, a lot of time has passed since these 11 members of Hindu family that migrated from Pakistan into India were found dead under mysterious circumstances. A lot of mystery shrouds as to why and how they were killed. Evidence goes towards some insecticide that was found there, but how did that insecticide affect them? And then, of course, there is no real justification from the Indians as far as that is concerned. What is your comment on that?
Definitely, it's an important issue of concern, especially when India has passed the Citizen Amendment Act, and if they are luring Hindus from across the region and claiming that India is a safer and better place for them, then this is a big question mark on India's strategy and policy to this policy, and this is also I think very important to understand that this is not the right way to create polarization or instability in the regional states. And the Hindus who went there, we definitely we feel for them. Our heart cries for the circumstances they passed through and the way their souls departed this. But this is important for us as well to do capacity building among our dear Pakistani Hindus, our brothers, that how things can be political and how they can be politically misused by a neighboring state, India, and for larger political circumstances. And this, this whole phenomena reminds me the way Indira Gandhi instigated and helped or used the issue of immigrants or refugees from East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, and how they are creating instability in Indian Western Bengal, and that is why Indian forces has to intervene in East Pakistan. So I think on Pakistan also needs to do capacity building and help our dear Hindu brothers, Pakistani brothers, to understand that. Definitely they've been misused. They should not be part of any vicious agenda of Modi Sarkar. They should refrain from being misused in any such strategy. So this is and I think like this program, media should play a vital role in creating awareness among our dear
Of
Hindu
course,
minority
that is
community.
very important,
And
Dr. Asma Shagar Khaja Sahaba. Awareness is very important, and awareness when it comes to what is happening to minorities in India. And I'm going now to Hamid Khan al Mishriki Sahab. Minorities in India, although the Muslims are around 200 million plus, despite that they are a minority in India because India is huge. But the way they are being treated since Narendra Modi came into power is, I mean, I have no words for it, and there are some adjectives that I cannot point out here. Nevertheless, it is despicable, the situation in which these minorities are present. What has the Modi government put on as agenda since it come into power, since it has come into power, and what is the collective responsibility of the Muslim world now in seeing what is happening in India?
Thank you very much, Umar. First of all, I would like to again sympathize with the family of our Hindus who were killed by Indian Raw last year in Jodhpur, and it was a pre-planned murder, a planned murder by Raw of these 11 Hindu members of from Pakistan. That is my always condolence, and I feel grieveness for them. Secondly, your question is very important. Within last 24 hours, if I would like to tell you that India have recently arrested two very famous Muslim clerics and Muslim ulama, blaming them that they were forcefully converting Muslim Hindus to Islam, which was absolutely a false accusation to those two Muslim scholars. But I mean, it is so much common since RSS and BJP has come in power that there are over 5,000 complaints against RSS and other organizations like that, where they are forcefully converting Muslims into Hindus, and they are doing it in like large numbers, like entire village or entire building or entire section of the community. So this is where the Muslim world has to intervene in it, because if I'll tell you the largest number of Muslims in any country at the moment is in India. They are more than more than Pakistan's population. So
Hmm.
this is where world needs to understand this is against the basic human rights what India is doing. On the one hand, on the one side, they are forcing Muslims to convert into Hinduism for the sake of Hindutva ideology, for the sake of Chankya ideology, and then Ghar Wapis scheme and all that. I shouldn't use the word, but it is all BS. But the
Hmm.
thing is that on the other hand, if voluntarily Hindus are converting into Islam and then they call it a forceful conversion, this is absolutely hypocrisy from the Indian government. And whatever they are doing with Muslims in terms of mob lynching, in terms of forcing them to call Jai Shri Ram and all that, there is one thing is very clear now, and world needs to understand that Modi is demolishing not only itself Indian secular identity. Modi is demolishing the complete fabric structure of secularism in India, which was never that much damaged prior to Modi. Because what it is, Modi is based on RSS ideology, where they cannot tolerate, they have no, I should say, they cannot afford, or they don't have any tolerance for any non-Muslim, any Hindu other than Hindus in the region, so especially in India. So if this is the situation, now it is the responsibility of, again, I always call the major Islamic countries, the bigger Islamic countries like Turkey, Malaysia, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, UAE, to give a shut up call to India, what they are doing. I mean, if they will keep arresting known Muslim figures like that and accusing them of being, falsely accusing them, turning Hindus into Muslims, is it possible? Where RSS has taken over the whole
All
country,
right.
where
Role of the
everywhere it is
Islamic
so much
community,
fear.
Dr. Asma Shakir Khaja Sahiba, OIC, the Arab League, so many other important
Exactly.
organizations such as the Non-Aligned Movement or the United Nations, where there are a large number of Muslim countries. Shouldn't they be getting together as one? We have the situation in India, we have the situation in Palestine, but let's now talk specifically of what is happening in India as far as the Muslim, the Muslim minority is concerned, whether it be the lynching, whether it be the cutting of the beards, whether it be the Jai Shri Ram chanting, whether it be the car vigilantes who are in action, and so on and so forth, and the rapes and whatnot. Dr. Saiba, my very worrisome question to you is, will this ever change? Will there be any country, organization that will be able to put pressure on India to change its tactics?
Uh, this is a very important question, but the answer is I fear is not that optimistic, because when we see the role of OIC and other Muslim countries, that is definitely not what one expects from such organizations. They are, and definitely, unfortunately, in this world of real politics, the economic interest supersedes human rights. They supersedes Muslim brotherhood. They supersedes the willingness to stand by the oppressed communities. So definitely, but here I would like to mention that these Modi's policies of constitutionalizing discrimination against Muslims, Muslim minority of India, that has actually raised alarm bells within the West and Western organizations and the organizations of human rights, and that is why they are continuously issuing reports and sending signals that India is sliding down on human rights issues, on democratic indicators, and India is no more a democracy rather than an electoral autocracy. And this is what Modi has earned for his people.
But
Definitely,
Dr.
the
Asma Shakir
damages of
Khaja, that understood. I take your point. But India is invited at the G7 summit. India is part of the FATF,
Exactly.
and so on and so forth. India is going on as far as the cooperation with different important organizations and countries in the West is concerned. There is no change, is there?
Yes, exactly. There is no such visible policy change among the Western governments or the Muslim governments. Their policies towards India remain same despite what is happening in Kashmir, despite what they are doing with Muslims in India, and the way they being a Muslim is something to be ashamed on in India. And this Muslim cleric who's been arrested in Delhi, he was also a converted Muslim. He converted to Islam in
Exactly.
1984, and his name is Umar Gotham. And even that, like Indian constitution allows anyone to change his religion on his will, and even that constitutional right people cannot exercise if they convert to Islam, if they consider Islam as a religion or as a faith they want to follow in their life. So this is really important because it is again discriminatory. If Muslims convert to Hindu, that is something really to take pride in. But if Hindus convert to Muslim on their free will, that is an act for which they can convict the concerned person, and they can. So this is, unfortunately, I believe no one can change it but the Indian public. The day
All right.
Indian public would realize that how Modi's policies are damaging the Federation of India, they are damaging or have damaged the Indian Federation
But
and
how can
Indian
Dr. Sahiba the Indian public
constitution.
change it when the majority of the
Otherwise,
Indian public is Hindu? Do you feel that they are the Hindus even have some? I mean, I understand that they are moderate Hindus as well that understand the plight that the Muslims are going through. But do we hear a lot of sane voices? We hear a very small number, and the rest are muted, aren't they?
Exactly.
yeah, you are right, Umar. Actually, but I think being Hindu is not a problem. Being a Hindu radical, being a RSS soldier, being an advocate of radical ideology of Akhand Bharat, that is the problem. So being Hinduism is like a religion or of like all other religions, but the political manifestation of that religion to fulfill the hegemonic political designs of a certain group of people, that is a problem, and that may change. But the problem is right now India doesn't have if we see Indian political landscape, it doesn't have space for peaceful voices.
Look
It
at the
doesn't have
social
space
media
for the
landscape,
voices.
Dr. Saiba, and
And
I'm now going to Hamid Mashriki Saab as well. The social media landscape, look at the curbs that they are putting on the social media so that the sane voices, the voices that talk reason and that talk reality of what is happening to the minorities in India are silenced. Isn't that the case, Hamid Mashriki?
Exactly. I mean, the Indian media is so biased. I mean, I come across Indian media very frequently, and
I know
I
that.
have seen that they are so biased towards Muslims, to anything against RSS ideology. And I mean, that is extremely damaging, not only India itself. Now, and other than that, it is causing a very much unrest in the region. What is happening in Kashmir? Everybody knows it can flare up a big war between two nuclear countries. Then, on the other hand, as Dr. Saib has mentioned, that Umar Gautam and other clerics have been arrested. What is the message going to the world? That this India is no more livable for any who's not a Hindu. This is the message. Now this is the time when there has to be a very strong movement within India, and they has to be supported by the foreign factors, where they should have been able to talk about the real secular India, which is the basic constitution of India. It gives rights to the people to have the religion of their choice. And we have seen during from 1947 up to 1984-85, there are hundreds and thousands of Muslims, Hindus, they were converting into Islam or Christianity, and this was not like a big thing. But since Modi has come into power, he has absolutely silenced all the voices who want to talk about against Hindutva ideology. And this is, I mean, we have seen that even somebody who's from a moderate Hindu family, and if he does one single tweet, there is a blasting of social media against that person. We have seen what they did to Barkha Dutt. We have seen what they did to so many other moderate journalists,
Arundhati
where they
Roy.
want to talk about the
Arundhati
neutral
Roy.
things.
Going to Rana, you
Exactly.
Exactly. This is the question. Now, this is the time then when Western world has to come out of its hypocrisy. And again, as Prime Minister Imran Khan reminded them, that do not look into your financial interests only. If anything happens, you are the one who will be losing your financial, economical interest in the region if anything happens big in the region.
All right.
So
All
this
right,
is the time when world,
Dr. Asma
and
Shakir
especially
Khaja,
Western
when
world
it
has to come
concerns
out
the
of it.
economic interests of India, one country that is backing India full time is the United States of America. Now,
Exactly.
if we remember well, if we go a little bit in past in the history, after the Gujarat massacre, it was the same Narendra Modi who was not allowed to enter the United States. Then he became the
Exactly.
Prime Minister. Then he was even allowed to address the parliament in the United States. Then he was put in the the most 100 most influential persons list in the Time magazine, and a glowing tribute was paid by the then President Barack Obama. What kind of leverage does US have on India? And don't you think the United States, being talking about its Black Lives Matter and all the other movements that have emanated and brought about a change in the US, can't the US bring about a change in India as well, given the fact that it has a certain leverage as far as India is concerned?
See, the leverage US has on India is to use or India as a tool against China or China's rise. But that is again, I don't think so. India even qualifies to fulfill that job or to do that job for USA, because India has Indian economic growth or Indian capacity doesn't have any even comparison or comparable with China. So this is what US has to realize. But as a student of international security, what I have observed that India seeks its strategic significance by through enhancing the strategic anxieties of the USA. So it is the job of USA to rationalize that what they are expecting from India and what they want India to, how they want India to serve them. So, but again, at the same time, if US has that much leverage on India, why don't they utilize that leverage to initiate or to broker peace between the two countries, Pakistan and India? But they would never do that, because in that case they will not be able to influence influence the politics of India that much. And then there is another important thing I would like to mention,
All
that
right.
today I read an article on BBC online, and which is only about that how Indian economy faced a downfall, a nosedive during Modi regime, and that Indian economy which Modi promised to be huge, that is actually shrinked. The Indian GDP growth rate from 7 to 8% has slided down to 3%. To soon, I think that soon that glamorized image of India to be a potential market and or to be a potential economic partner, that bubble would also be busted thanks to the policies of Modi and thanks to the Modi's policies of showing off. I believe, as while studying India, that Modi only focuses on propaganda, but he doesn't believe in actually causing that change which he's promising through propaganda to his people that he will bring. So I think the economic downfall would definitely affect the soft image of India and the relevance of India with the Western world,
All right.
and relevance of India with the Muslim world. And this point would bring the right movement or the gap on which Pakistan can maximize, Pakistan can build upon, and Pakistan can work on initiating, improving, increasing international pressure on India. So definitely, and then I always believe there is no revolution is not sustainable. It is always evolution. So under Modi, India is sliding down gradually. World would maybe realize, maybe the moment India would not be economically relevant to the Western or capitalist world, they would realize that how the things are getting worse for the people living in India. It is not our problem. It is the problem of Indian public, that they have to realize the way they are disintegrating socially,
Of course,
politically,
it is
ethnically,
ultimately
religiously.
responsibility of the
They
Indian people,
need to
because it
understand this
considers itself to be a
polarization.
democracy, nevertheless, India. And of course, the whole government that comes into power with the vote of the people. But do people in India understand the reality of the situation of what is happening in India? Hamid Khan al Mushriki, is the reality propagated in real terms, facts and figures, as to where India is sliding as far as its economy is concerned, and what needs to be done as far as its human rights abuses are concerned? Does the average Indian man know about this reality, Hamid Saab?
Umar, unfortunately, there is only one main medium for the average Indian people to know, and that is media. And media is fully controlled by Modi Sarkar. So, as to be honest, average or normal middle class or poor class Indian, they don't know what exactly happening. Just to give you a glimpse, that at the time when Modi came into power, he claimed that I will take Indian economy to 50 trillion. And in the end, it has been come less than 50% of their estimated, progress within last 7 years. So this is what
26
India is
trillion.
going through. It is India is going through a economical collapse, and eventually it will affect the poor people of India. This is what I always talk about, that this is the time when the poor people of India has to come against the current regime. This is not a democracy. This is a kind of a dictatorship where they are controlling not only the media, they are controlling their army, they are controlling their Supreme Court. If you look into the decisions of Supreme Court in the matter of Kashmir, in the matter of Babri Masjid, in the matter of lynching Muslims, it is so ununderstandable decisions that there is no law can justify these kind of decisions. But this is what their Supreme Court is doing. When the courts are not giving right decisions, I will like to remind you that Winston Churchill said that when my courts are not giving justice, my country would be in danger. As long as there is justice in the country can survive. And Modi is the one who has made his country at this edge, that this country, if it carries on like that, there will be very few in near future, there will be many countries erupting from India. And that is why I call that Modi will be proven as Gorbachev of India, who will divide it into India into many countries. And obviously, when it comes to the many countries, the Khalistan will be there, the Kashmir, independent Kashmir will be there. And all this will be happening because of a dictatorship of Modi. And let's tell you one thing, last thing, that how can poor Indian would know, while there are over 60% of Indian do not have access to the toilets. How can a poor Indian would know what economy is doing when it is all a corporate economy? We have seen what farmers are doing for the last 7 8 months. This is what's happening in India now. Indian government and this RSS ideology will pay its price. That economy is nearly collapsing. Yes, they are hiding out everything. Putting under the carpet does not mean that the reality is not there.
Of
Indian
course.
government,
Hiding under
Indian
the carpet
media
does not
is
mean that the
hiding
reality is
everything
not there.
from their
Hamid Sahab, I
public,
agree with you.
but
Thank
the
you very
fact
much,
is
Hamid Khan
different.
al-Mushtaki Sahab. Thank you very much, Dr. Asma Shakir Khaja Sahiba. You have pointed out some grim realities as far as India's minorities are concerned, especially the Muslims. But nevertheless, what needs to be done and what needs to be highlighted by important communities and organizations and countries such as the US is exactly this. India needs to be made to be pressurized in order to change its tactics. And as Dr. Asma Shakir Khaja Sahiba says, it will eventually be an evolution of the people of India that will stand up to what is happening in India itself with their own people. We are talking about, with not anybody else but their own citizens. Thank you very much to both of my guests who have joined us in this very interesting, nevertheless grim situation. Let's come to our last two segments, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly. The first is, of course, US Senator Lindsey Graham, who has described American President Joe Biden's reluctance to reach out to Prime Minister Imran Khan as stunning, and has warned that ignoring Pakistan while withdrawing from Afghanistan could lead to disaster. I'll quote unquote what Lindsey Graham had to say. He said, "Stunning to hear that President Biden hasn't reached out to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, regarding the US-Pakistan relationship in Afghanistan." He is, of course, a South Carolina Republican. He wrote this on Twitter. He also supports the continued US engagement with Kabul and Islamabad, and he reminded the US President that his planned withdrawal from Afghanistan requires Pakistan's cooperation. Again, quote unquote, he says, "How do we expect our withdrawal from Afghanistan to be effective without coordinating with Pakistan? Clearly, the Biden administration believes that our problems in Afghanistan are behind it." Now, let's hope that the higher-ups in the US do understand what is happening in Afghanistan, and of course understand the importance that Pakistan has as well as far as the Afghan situation is concerned. Pakistan has always helped the US when it also came to bringing the US and the Afghan Taliban on the negotiating table. And final segment, ladies and gentlemen, is about Pakistan and Facebook that have joined hands and to partner to fight COVID-19. And of course, one of the world's most effective social media platforms, that is Facebook, has provided marketing partner support and ad credits for the campaigns against the deadly virus, and have helped the government increase its engagement rates with the public on these posts. Of course, this concerns the Ministry of Health of the government of Pakistan, and also the partnership has been created between the Facebook community and the digital media wing of the Ministry of Information. There is also a message by Dr. Faisal Sultan, Special Assistant to the Prime Minister on Health, who says that 76% of the target population has been reached due to the social media messaging campaigns. And of course, this partnership between Facebook and the government of Pakistan will go a long way in making the people of Pakistan understand the importance not only of following the SOPs but also of getting themselves vaccinated under these current circumstances. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow. New segments, new stories. Stay safe, get yourselves vaccinated. Allah Hafiz.